Hi, my name is Marco Bronzini. I'm a graduate of the Royal Academy of Arts in London, England. And today we're doing day 2 of this Impressionist landscape, the Lavender Fields, with the workers in the field. So today what I did is added a little bit more paint to my palette. This is the same palette as last time. Ultramarine, cerulean, a little bit of burnt sienna, cad orange, raw sienna, permanent green, no, not permanent green, sorry, viridian, and some sap green, and also some permanent rose or alizarin crimson, same thing, that's permanent rose. And then also some titanium white, and then this is liquid to dry faster. So the first thing I'm going to do is reestablish one more time the lavender and get a little bit more involved with some of the colors. So I mix a little bit of permanent rose and some ultramarine in here. And we're going to start putting some paint right in here throughout the whole thing. Now lavender, of course, can be towards the blue, towards the red. This photograph is very blue, so I'm introducing a little bit more of a reddish cast to the lavender, which I think would be a little prettier. It's a very blue photo for some reason, so we're kind of using a little bit of poetic license in here in creating some of the deeper red colors, as well as the light one, of course. We need both. And we're going to start cutting it a little bit better into those figures in a minute. I'm just putting more paint in here, just finishing up there, some in here. And I'm going to get to a smaller brush, slightly smaller brush. Lots of paint, of course. Ultramarine, permanent rose, some white. And we're going to slap that paint on, create all kinds of effects like this. Right in here, this is nice and dry now, so you can really go over that color right there. So following the design we had on day 1, of course, there's wonderful curves. And as I mentioned before, as we go back, we don't want to do little things like that. We want to do just the main theme, which is the sort of half circles like that, which creates the idea of the lavender in the distance. And we get an even smaller brush now. It's okay to use smaller brush when it's called for. And we're going to get in some of the darker colors right in here. And again, this is an Impressionist painting, so it's okay to use some smaller brush. Impressionists actually use pretty small brushes, if you can believe it. And a lot of work, of course. So the lavender in front, of course, is going to be a bit more involved with the ones at the back. The ones at the back really is just an impression of that. Pick up some light in here. On top of this. And slowly build up the whole thing there. And then back to the smaller brush. Right in here. Some shadows in there, which we can put in a second. There. I'm going to cut in right in the foreground, right in here. Some nice things right in here. The small brushes really do a great job at that. And same thing in here, just a few strokes of colors. Again, an impression. And again, in your own style, don't copy me, just do your own impression of that. But the concept, try to follow the concept I'm showing you. That's important. The way to start the painting, the steps of a painting. kind of important. I'm not happy with the sky, so I'm gonna change that color a little bit and mix like a gray blue. This is too intense. It's just taking over from the overwhelming for the lavender. So this is a nice color, which is a little bit grayer, a little bit duller down here. And then the top, I'm gonna go a little bit of blue in there, not much. It was too much before, did not like it. I think that represents the heat of the day a little bit better without overpowering the field. It's a much quieter color. It sits there very nicely, minding its own business, which is what we want. There. I am going to put a little cloud in there because I think that kind of looks nice. Sitting on the horizon line, right in here. Maybe a little touch in here as well. But it's a much more pleasing color. There. Okay. Okay, now we're going to introduce some of the shadows along here. So, with oil, what I just did here, this is the beauty of oil. You can just change everything around. I can turn this into a snow scene if I want to. So this is a much better color. So sometimes the photograph is everything you want. Sometimes you want to use poetic license. All right, so let's put some of those shadows in here, which I think be very useful later on. This is the shadow from the, obviously from the lavender falling onto the path right there. And then quite deep in here, very nice. As with, photographs, you got to be careful there. I think I've warned you before that, but I mentioned it again for those who didn't catch the video. On a photograph, usually the dark look black and the white are overexposed, so they look too white. So be careful, that's not a sort of a bit of a pitfall if you're not careful. You got to really keep in mind all these colors. What are they really? Is it really that dark? So it's important. All right, now we're going to go into this part in here, which is very nice and bright. It's lovely colors in there. I'm using the raw sienna, a little bit of burnt sienna in there. I'm going to pick up some of the stones without painting stones, but some of the sort of formation of the rocks, especially right here in front, and come in nice and bright into the painting, so it invites you into that. Strokes in there, here. And as you go back, of course, that color changes a little bit. Do this side first. There, a little touch in here. Really get into that field. And as we go back, we can introduce a little bit of green in there, just to gray down just a little bit. And we pick up some things right there. Touches here. Right. And then back to lavender again. Okay, let's build up again on that lavender. Some nice colors in there to create the shapes. Same thing in here. Behind that figure right there. And in a second, we're going to come back and start cleaning up these figures. A lot of stuff going on beyond there. Perspective, let's not forget. Go way back there. The ultramarine and the permanent rose, or alizarin crimson if you have, do a wonderful job here. A little bit of white there and there. Don't overdo the white. It looks pretty good. We're going to add a little bit of green in there. I'm using a little bit of sap green. I mentioned last time, sap green is not really my favorite, but I think in this case, actually it works really well. I'm going to put some in here. Put a little bit of the region as well, and then in here as well, like this. Some in there, so intertwined. And we're going to come back with lavender on top of it one more time. Very effective. Some green there and there, bits and pieces. And we have lavender one more time in here. So we make sure that's in front of that. And same thing on this side. Nice thick paint. Like this. And don't lose that shape we talked about earlier. It's so typical lavender. And then right in here. The more you work, the more solid that field will look. So, you can stop and have a break and come back in a couple of days if you need to. For the sake of the video, we're doing it in just 2 goes, but you can take your time and really build up. It'll be great. The more you work, if you like impressionism, paintings like Monet and Sisley and Pissarro and all the great ones, a lot of work. You'd be amazed how much work is in the paintings. Unless they're sketching, tons of work. Tons of work. All right, touching that, then we're going to go into the figures in a second. Then I may come back to that. Okay, we're going to work a little bit on those people now, on the figures rather. Putting some more colors there and there. I'm going to start with this figure in here. Because last time we just sketched them in, but now we can really add a little bit more paint on it and create what actually is there. This figure is bending down. So all right in there, which is nice. So I'm using a little brush to get into some of those little shapes right in here to create the figures. This guy's got a little hat as well. He will eventually. So does he. Well, they all have hats actually, except for this guy. Okay, let's keep on going with this. I slide it right in here, there. Slide on top of her shoulder, right there. Let me get a slightly smaller brush in here to get into this. He's really bent over there, which is kind of nice, like that. And in this guy here, it's got a little thing wrapped around on the bag. We obviously collecting the lavender, and it sticks the back of his shirt right there. All right, so a few hats now. It's got a hat right in here. The yellow hat stays, of course, like that. And it's kind of light yellow there, which is kind of nice as well. There. All right, let's get into the some of the skin values in there. It's kind of a reddish color, a lot of sunlight, but the faces are mostly in the shade, like this. It's got a little bit of sunlight on there. Right, and then let's do a couple of shadows right in here. As you can see, it's just an impression, really no detail at all. No detail at all. I want to pay attention a little bit more to this figure here. There are a couple of things on there. Stroke here. And then a bit of blue in here. There. And then they look pretty good. And we're going to tighten up around them with the lavender now. Okay, let's go back into the lavender against the figures now. So we're going to tighten up a little bit. So it outlines them a little bit better. It's like cleaning up, if you will, without overdoing it. Some of the color of the canvas underneath kind of needs to go. There, then we can finish up in there as well. Run this guy as well. Let's do a little bit of work there. So there's a little bit of lavender right in there, which is actually looks really good. And then behind him. And then we're gonna have some few touches in there in a minute. But let's just clean up around them first. Same thing in there. And then there's a lot of lines like this, which you can do to create the shape of the lavender in the distance right there. And same thing here, there's a lot of bits and pieces. So without, don't overanalyze what's there, but you do need to introduce a little bit of the impression of some stuff way in the distance like that without doing anything specific. And then we're going to clean up around the perspective in here because that was very wet when I did that. So now we can reestablish that properly. And then we're going to come in with that light in a second. Again, back in here, some circle like that. And the more work you do, the better the painting will look. At least that's the object. Same thing in here, just a few little breaks in the shadows, so nothing is flat. Lots of work. Like that. I'm going to come back to this now and clean that up. Okay, we're going to strengthen this, reestablish the perspective one more time in there and clean up, because when I did it, it was very wet. But now we can really go to town here. So obviously, don't go like this. Just take your time and really build up the impression, of what you see in the distance there. I'm going to knock that down. It's a little bit too bright, but I want this one here. And then that joins with this, like this, very nicely. I'm going to dial down the one I just did because it's too bright. It's jumping in front of that. You can see that, can you? So I'm going to knock it down like that, and even come back with the purple next to it. So I don't want it so sharp. Kind of like that. way back in the distance, where it belongs. A little touch in here, maybe. Touch in there. And that establishes very well. All right. And at the same time, we can come back in here and then clean up in here because this is just the color of the canvas, which works in our favor actually. So you don't have to cover everything, but you can put some more paint on it. Same thing in here. We can cut in to some of the lavender right there to create this idea. Same thing in there. I really like to get that contrast a little bit stronger in here, there. Really nice, a little bit duller, not as bright as this. I like to go behind the figure there. And then let's come back one more time behind this person right there, this lady, and clean up around there like that. There. And I'm going to put a little bit of a near white on top of that shirt to create a little bit more of a sunlight right here. Him too, it's a bit of sunlight on there. I think he's okay. A bag right there. Gonna clean up that hat because it looks like a little bit crazy right there. There, that's a hat. Clean up a little bit around there. Then we're almost home. Don't overwork that. Couple of touches there and there. A few breaks here. I'm going to come back one more time in the lavender that just build up. All right, just to finish the painting, just a few more little brushes rather on the brush strokes especially in the foreground, just to get some of the darker colors in there, get a bit organized, and give the idea of the lavender and the shadows and the sunlight, etc. A few more strokes in here as well. The contrast is going to be a little stronger in here, so I'm putting a few more strokes in there, a few more strokes in here. And in the immediate foreground, a few more things in there just to invite us into the canvas a little bit better. A few more things in there. I mean, you could go on and on with this, as always, knowing when to stop. And we are doing a video, so we can't overwork anything. But I think you get the picture of what we're doing here. A few more things in there. Yeah, right there. I like the contrast in here a little bit more. Just a few strokes there and there. Goes a long way. Okay. I'm almost done, I promise. There. Oh yeah, right, clean up here. I think that's pretty good right in here. Stuff there. The shadow looks good. The dry ground in the heat of the summer. That's what we want to represent. There. A couple of touches here. All right, I think that's good. Okay, I think you get the idea. So, Lavender Field with workers. The object of the painting was figures in the landscape, how you paint them at the same time together. You don't paint the perfect background and just glue some figures on it. If you want to be an impressionist and paint loosely, that's the way you should do it, the approach I showed you. Well, thank you for joining me, and let me think what you think of this one. Let me know what you think of this one. And don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you soon.